This moment was not meant to reach many, it was meant to reach one. Beloved soul, there are no accidents here, and if these words have found you at this exact moment, it is because something unseen has gently guided you to listen. This message is not passing through by chance, and it is not meant for many, but for you, personally, as you are right now. In the quiet layers of the night, something meaningful unfolded without your awareness, something subtle yet powerful, and its echo is reaching you now because the timing has been prepared. There has been a movement behind the veil, a decision made in silence by someone close to you, someone whose connection to you runs deeper than words have ever expressed. It did not come as a message or a confession, but as an action shaped by emotion, intention, and truth. While you were going about your life, unaware, this person paused and chose to hold you in a way that was both private and revealing, as if honoring something they could no longer keep to themselves. They shared an image of you, not just your appearance, but the essence you carry, with someone significant in their world. And that choice carries more meaning than you might realize. This was not casual, nor was it impulsive. It was an act filled with reflection, vulnerability, and a quiet courage that surprised even them. You may wonder what stirred such a moment, what compelled them to reveal something so personal without warning you first. And those questions are natural, because when something is shared in silence, it often signals a truth still forming its voice. And part of you learned to dismiss moments like this quickly, because hoping quietly hurts less than hoping fully. You trained yourself not to trust what felt meaningful unless it was already proven safe. What matters now is not the surface of the action, but the shift it represents, the crossing of an inner threshold that cannot be undone. Because once this threshold is crossed, returning to the version of you that survived by staying unseen will no longer be possible. Something is being acknowledged in the unseen, something that has been growing longer than you suspected, and you are being invited to become aware of it because your soul is ready to recognize what has been quietly taking shape. Stay with this moment, because if you turn away now, nothing dramatic will happen, except that this opening may close without announcing it was ever here. This message will not land on everyone. Some will feel nothing, some will feel irritated, and some will feel exposed without knowing why. When that image reached their eyes, something far deeper than surprise moved through the room, because what rose in them was not a casual reaction or polite approval, but a wave of recognition that caught them off guard and left no space for indifference. It stirred emotions they were not prepared to name, a weight in the chest, a stillness that demanded attention, as if something ancient had been gently touched awake. This was not about how you look or how you appear on the surface. It was about essence meeting essence, about a truth surfacing that could not be reduced to words. And if you feel a quiet pull to keep listening, pause here and notice how your body responds, because moments like this do not echo unless they are meant to be heard by the one they concern. The picture was not shown to just anyone, but to the person they trust most, the one whose opinion matters when life feels uncertain. And the reason was not curiosity alone, but a need to witness the truth reflected back through another set of eyes. Your presence has been living in their heart longer than you realized, shaping their thoughts, unsettling old assumptions, pressing against places they once kept guarded. And sharing that image was an act of vulnerability, a way of saying without saying, that something meaningful had taken root. What unfolded next carried a weight no one in that room expected, because the response was not admiration but awe, not commentary but silence, the kind of silence that falls when something sacred steps into view. The friend did not smile or joke or offer reassurance. Instead, they stopped, as if time itself had slowed, their breath catching while they stared, sensing familiarity without context, longing without explanation. And here is where the unseen threads reveal themselves more clearly, because what they felt was not attraction but remembrance, as if they were looking at something they had encountered before in a place beyond memory, a face woven into dreams rather than photographs. The room held that stillness as the friend finally spoke, voice unsteady, confessing that they had seen you before, not in life as it is now, but in a dream that lingered long after waking, a search they had never known how to articulate until this moment. That single sentence shifted everything, because it named what had been moving beneath the surface all along, that this connection is not built on chance encounters or fleeting interest, but on alignment unfolding across time. Your person felt it in that instant too, the confirmation that what they had been carrying quietly was not imagined, that their hesitation had been reverence rather than doubt, and that the gravity of this bond demanded patience rather than impulse. This was not a dramatic declaration meant to impress, but a sacred recognition witnessed through another soul, and it reframed how they see you, how they see themselves, and how they understand what is forming between you. Stay present with this unfolding, because what was revealed in that quiet exchange is not meant to rush into explanation, but to settle gently, guiding the next steps with clarity that comes not from urgency, but from knowing that something real has already been set in motion and is moving closer to being fully seen. Can you feel the gravity of that moment as it settled into the room? Because this was never about appearance or admiration, but about recognition that reaches beneath language and memory, the kind that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the soul. What unfolded there was not someone noticing beauty, but someone encountering familiarity without context, a knowing that arrives fully formed and leaves no room for doubt, as if two inner worlds briefly touched and remembered something ancient together. The friend was not responding to a picture, they were responding to presence, to a resonance that stretched beyond this lifetime, awakening impressions that had lived quietly in dreams and half-remembered longings. It was as though your spirit had already been woven into their story, and seeing you unlocked a hidden chamber where recognition had been waiting patiently. And before the meaning moves any further, pause with me and notice how your own chest tightens or softens at the idea of being known without explanation, because that response reveals how deeply this truth is already speaking to you. Moments like this do not happen casually. They are rare intersections where timing, memory, and destiny align, where the unseen arranges a meeting that feels inevitable only after it occurs. The reaction was not surprise but realization, the sudden clarity that some connections are not formed by chance but carried across time, returning when conditions are finally right. And here is where the current shifts and the significance deepens, because by sharing your image, your person unknowingly opened a door that had been closed far too long, allowing recognition to pass through and confirm what had been forming beneath the surface all along. This was not a random exchange, but a sacred unveiling, a quiet announcement that a bond long held in the unseen had found a witness. It reframed how they understand you, how they understand themselves, and how they understand the pull that has been guiding them without words. And if this moment passes without honesty, it will not disappear, it will return as regret. Some connections do not fade, they wait. And when they return later, they carry more weight than they ever did at the beginning. When the friend spoke of dreams and searching, it named a truth many carry but few ever articulate, that some faces feel familiar because the connection did not begin here, that some encounters feel weighted because they are reunions rather than introductions. Your person felt that confirmation settle into them too, not as urgency but as reverence, a knowing that patience was not avoidance but preparation, and that what was awakening deserved care rather than haste. This recognition does not demand immediate answers or dramatic gestures. It invites alignment, an inner recalibration that allows life to move differently from this point forward. As you reflect on what this means for you, understand that this is not about elevating one moment above all others, but about recognizing that your path has been guided with intention, that your choices, delays, and resilience have been shaping you for encounters that meet you where you are now. You are part of something larger than isolated moments, a design that reveals itself gradually, often through quiet confirmations rather than loud declarations. Stay open to that unfolding, not with expectation but with trust, because what has been set in motion will continue to reveal itself in ways that feel natural and grounded. This is not the end of understanding but the threshold of a deeper awareness, where connections illuminate purpose and recognition becomes a gentle guide, leading you forward as the unseen continues its careful work. Beloved soul, as these words reach you, allow yourself to breathe slowly and sense the nearness of something larger than effort or coincidence, because this message has arrived with intention, carried to you at the precise moment when love from the unseen is leaning toward your life. What happened when your image was shared was not a casual impulse or simple pride. It was an act shaped by admiration and reverence, a quiet acknowledgement of the light you carry even when you are unaware of it. The impact you have on others, often without trying, is not ordinary, and the way your presence alters rooms and hearts belongs to a deeper design. What was recognized was never limited to how you appear on the surface. It was the quality of spirit you hold, the grace that settles around you, the warmth that lingers because your inner life has been tuned through faith, endurance, and love. Your essence has a way of stirring dormant hopes, touching places people forgot they protected, and awakening memories they cannot name. And even without meeting you, those attuned to the sacred feel it immediately. And before you rush past this truth or try to minimize it, pause with me long enough to feel how often you have underestimated your own influence, how often you believed your quiet faith went unnoticed. Because that underestimation is part of the collective wound, this moment is now healing. This is not about physical beauty, though there is beauty in you that radiates from the inside out. It is about resonance at the level of the soul, the kind that travels through a single image and still carries weight. It is astonishing, yes, but it is also consistent with the way grace works through you, using simplicity to reveal depth. When questions arise about why your image was shared or why the pull to reveal you felt unavoidable, remember that love recognizes love, and light seeks light, and what is shared from the heart always finds its witness. And here is where the meaning deepens and the movement becomes clearer. Because those who saw you did not see a face alone. They felt purpose. They sensed intention. They encountered a reminder of prayers they once whispered and dreams they set aside when life grew heavy. That stirring was not random. It was the effect of alignment, the way your life speaks even in silence. You are not merely passing through the world. You are carrying something entrusted to you, a vessel of mercy and hope shaped through trials you never asked for but endured with integrity. From the beginning, a distinct light was placed within you, and it has guided you through doubt, steadied you through loss, and reached others even when you felt unseen. When loneliness whispered that your efforts were small, when fatigue suggested you had little left to give, grace continued working through you, using every choice toward kindness, every restraint, every act of forgiveness as a living testimony. This is not chance at work. It is purpose unfolding through ordinary moments, shaping lives in ways you may never fully measure. You were never meant to merely survive. You were formed to bring elevation, to remind others of goodness when cynicism grows loud, to offer warmth when the world feels cold. The quiet acts you dismiss as insignificant are, in truth, the very threads through which the unseen is weaving change. Even when you doubt your adequacy, every part of who you are is being used with care, and the love you release returns multiplied through lives you may never meet. Your light is not fragile, it is expansive. Your capacity to love is not finite, it is continually renewed. As you continue walking in alignment, you become a living sign of grace at work, not through spectacle, but through steadiness. You are participating in something larger than a single moment, larger than a single connection, a movement of restoration carried forward by faith lived quietly. This is your calling, not defined by noise or recognition, but by faithfulness expressed through presence. And you are fulfilling it even on days when it feels hidden, because what has been set in motion through you is already changing the world in ways that will outlast this moment. There is a layer of your story that has never been spoken aloud, a season where you learn to carry weight quietly, to keep choosing integrity when it cost you connection, and to keep believing in goodness even when life did not reward it immediately. And that silent endurance is the ache so many carry without language. You learned how to show up without being seen, how to love without being mirrored, how to hold faith without reassurance, and over time that can create a loneliness that is not desperation but exhaustion, the tiredness of always being the strong one while wondering if strength is all you will ever be valued for. And before this unfolds any further, pause with me here and let yourself acknowledge how much you have carried without recognition, how many times you resisted becoming bitter, how often you chose depth over ease, because that restraint was never invisible, even when it felt unanswered. In Scripture, there is a quiet moment when Elijah believes he is alone, certain his faithfulness has gone unnoticed, only to discover later that preservation was already at work beyond his awareness. And in the same way, what you sowed in hidden places has been held, protected, and multiplied without announcement. The seeds you planted were not loud actions, but inner decisions, moments where you chose patience over reaction, truth over comfort, humility over proving yourself, and those choices created alignment long before you felt movement. And here is where the shift becomes unmistakable and the connection sharpens. Because what is approaching now is not a reward for effort, but a response to alignment, a meeting point between who you became in the dark and what can finally meet you in the light. You are not being asked to explain your past or justify your depth. It is already understood at the level that matters. What you once feared made you too much is the very thing creating recognition now, because the unseen always responds to authenticity, not performance. You may notice your emotions surfacing differently, a tenderness replacing vigilance, a quiet anticipation that feels unfamiliar because it does not come with anxiety. And this is your inner world, adjusting to the idea that you no longer have to carry everything alone. The movement toward you is not hurried because it respects what you survived, and it is not dramatic because it is built to last, shaped by the same patience you learned under pressure. This is why the timing feels precise rather than rushed, why clarity arrives without force, and why what once felt delayed now feels deliberate. You are stepping into a season where the weight you carried alone begins to redistribute, not through rescue but through resonance, meeting something that understands without interrogation. The pain you endured refined your discernment, and that discernment is what allows you to recognize what is safe now. Nothing you withheld in wisdom was wasted. Nothing you guarded in faith was ignored, and nothing you became in silence was accidental. The unfolding ahead is not asking you to change who you are, but to trust that who you are is finally being met. And as this continues to reveal itself, you will see that the long stretch of waiting was not emptiness, but preparation, not absence, but alignment, bringing you to a threshold where what you planted in private begins to answer you in truth. As this message settles into your awareness, let it move from something you simply absorb into something you quietly make room for, knowing that no dramatic action is required and nothing needs to be proven. What has already begun in the unseen only asks for a small, honest alignment in the way you live your days. You might notice an invitation to loosen your grip on an old thought that once protected you, a familiar fear that kept you alert, or an identity formed in survival that no longer reflects who you are becoming. And you do not need to fight these things or rush their release. Only recognize them and allow a little space around them. In the same gentle way, you may feel drawn to bring a bit more order or openness into your physical space, not as a ritual or rule, but as a quiet signal to yourself that you are willing to receive, perhaps by clearing a corner, letting light into a room, or choosing not to fill every moment with noise, allowing stillness to exist without needing to explain it. There is also wisdom in giving form to what you sense internally, not to lock it into certainty, but to acknowledge it, maybe by writing a few words about what you are open to now, what feels possible, or what you are ready to meet, trusting that clarity often comes through presence rather than answers. As you move through your days, stay attentive to what repeats gently rather than loudly, subtle confirmations, familiar themes, or moments that carry peace instead of urgency, because preparation often looks like learning when not to react, choosing curiosity over defense, and allowing yourself to respond honestly without rehearsing outcomes. You are not being asked to hurry or to get everything right. Readiness grows through steadiness, not perfection. Some days alignment may look like rest, other days like courage, and many days like nothing more than choosing not to return to an old narrative when it tries to reclaim you. This preparation is not about earning what is coming or unlocking blessing through effort, but about creating space so what is already approaching can arrive without resistance. Trust that what has been set in motion does not depend on constant attention or control, only your willingness to remain present, grounded, and slightly more open than you were yesterday. In this way, the prophetic moves naturally into the practical, not through pressure or performance, but through quiet cooperation with what has already begun to find its way toward you. What you have felt moving through you as you listened is real, and it carries a weight of meaning that does not need explanation or proof. Nothing stirred within you by accident, and nothing you sensed was misplaced, because what has been spoken here has already been acknowledged and set into motion beyond what can be seen. The unseen is active, attentive, and precise, and what has been aligned does not require your effort to hold it together or your fear to keep it safe. If you have remained until this moment, it is because something within you recognized its own language, a quiet knowing that did not rush but stayed, trusting that this message belonged to you. This is not a conclusion but a turning, a gentle crossing into a new movement of life that will reveal itself gradually through lived moments rather than sudden declarations. As it is written, "He who began a good work will carry it on to completion," and that work unfolds with care, not urgency. Carry this awareness with you lightly, without trying to name it too soon, and allow what has been sealed to continue its work. There is no need to chase what is already approaching. Walk forward with calm attention, remain open without striving, and let what has begun unfold in its own faithful way. Stay here in the quiet expectancy and move on gently, knowing that this moment has marked a beginning, not an end. Even long after details fade, your body will remember this moment because alignment leaves an imprint time cannot erase. Let us settle into prayer with quiet hearts, knowing we are held. Faithful and loving God, we come before you, not reaching out in fear but resting in trust, grateful for the gentle way you have guided these lives, even when your footsteps were not visible, thankful for the unseen arrangements, the careful timing, and the silent protection that has surrounded every step. We honor you for the seeds of love, restraint, faithfulness, and obedience sown in hidden seasons, for the nights when endurance felt lonely, yet you were near, and for the courage it took to remain open when closing off would have felt easier. You have seen every quiet choice, every prayer whispered without words, every moment of patience when answers delayed, and we thank you that nothing offered in sincerity has ever been lost or forgotten. We receive with humility the truth that what is unfolding now is not imagined but aligned, already in motion by your wisdom rather than human effort. And we place this season of transition fully into your hands. Grant peace that settles the heart instead of stirring urgency, clarity that guides without overwhelming, and readiness that feels grounded rather than strained. As your word says, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Let that peace guard the inner world of each soul listening, steadying emotions, quieting old fears, and making space for what is new. We ask for discernment that recognizes your voice amid noise, for courage to remain present when truth draws near, and for softness that does not compromise wisdom. Bless the unfolding connections with honesty, respect, and gentleness. allowing what you have planted to grow at its own pace, protected from haste and fear. Teach these hearts to walk forward without forcing outcomes, to receive without guilt, and to trust without grasping, confident that what you sustain will endure. We dedicate this next chapter to you, not as a demand for certainty, but as an offering of trust, believing that you go before, beside, and behind, faithfully completing what you have begun. Thank you for every soul who has paused here in prayer, for the shared stillness, and for the reminder that no one walks this path unseen or alone. May you carry this peace with you as you return to your day, held by grace, guided with care, and accompanied by hope, until we part gently from this moment, resting in the quiet assurance that God is still at work. If your heart feels stirred or tender right now, you are gently invited to leave a few honest words below, not to explain yourself, but to release what you have been holding inside. You may share a hope you've protected, a pain you've carried quietly, a fear you haven't named, or a prayer that has lived only in silence. What is offered with sincerity is seen by God and received with compassion. No tear, no longing, no whispered truth is ever overlooked. As you write, remember you are not alone in this space, but surrounded, supported, and carried by a love that restores and guides you with care. You don't need to explain, even a single word is enough.